Yeah, ready to rock, brother.
All right, welcome to another episode of Grinds My Gears. Today I got with me the Viking. He lives up to the name too with that beard, brother. Shaun Zimmer, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really well, brother. Really well. Best day of my life, man.
Yeah, every day above ground's a good day.
You
So,
got,
uh, I wanted to talk to you for a long time. I've had a lot of people who listen to my podcast and just uh, follow me in general, ask me about you, and I've been following your journey for quite a few years, and it's for me, it's been inspiring to watch you and see some of the stuff that you've been doing, not only just with what happened last winter, I guess, right? Winter, yeah. But even before that, with all the chaos in Canada that's been going on. So before, I don't like to go over people's stories so much because I've listened to some of the other stuff you've done, and you've already kind of gone over the story and how things came to fruition of where you are today. But at the same time, some people don't know, what Shaun Zimmer's all about. So can you give us a little bit of a background of like how things kind of took off for you in terms of, your influence online and with the convoy and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff? Just like a brief summary of how that kind of came into full view.
yeah, absolutely. Brief summary for online. Well, that started with memes of my daughter and I and videos of my involved parenting that went viral. That's what started originally getting the wheels turning on an online presence being built. And then my knowledge on self sabotage and psychology and the tribal mind is what a lot of people came to me for to help them get past self sabotage and addictions and everything that comes in with that. And then yeah, up to the convoy. Well, we I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the
Yeah.
smack center of Canada here, and shortly when shit hit the fan, so to say, shortly after I opened my home into a community center pretty well, starting with my yard, which evolved into inside my home, offering free fitness classes and a bunch of different stuff for kids and venues and we can unpack all. There's a lot there. So, a short story is in the face of the lockdowns, I said no. Open this community right in the busy area of Winnipeg. One of them where the police were able to see what we were doing and try
Yeah.
to harass me and scare me into shutting down, and stood my ground. And then shortly after that, found myself leaving the kids classes we had going inside the home here with 50 kids in the home every night, to left that to a couple of the parents who had been there for a while to take over while I went to Ottawa for the convoy. Got there just 2 days after it got rolling and stayed there until the very end. And I actually just taken a month off social media before the convoy. Needed a break.
Yeah, we all do, but it follows. Follow.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to be completely off there, but I feel a calling to be on there, sharing my voice. So I didn't know much about the convoy at all. I was really out of touch with things on social media, and when I jumped back on, everybody's like, "What are you? Where are you at? Why aren't you involved with this?" So we watched it roll through Winnipeg, and right when it rolled through, I knew I had to go. So packed up and took off, tailed right behind them. And so, with that being said, I wasn't involved in it at all, other than just boots on the ground.
Yeah. And what was your main like motivation for wanting to go? Because it's not like I'm in Toronto. It's not like Manitoba, Winnipeg is just fucking close. It's like really fucking far. And for the people who don't know, February in Manitoba is cold as shit. February in Ottawa is cold as shit. Like, um,
Mhm.
what
Yeah,
kind?
we left. There was a whiteout actually on
Yeah, like
the
so,
city. Something.
like and this is I'm not ragging on Canadians. I love Canada, but Canadians have this tendency to be stagnant when shit hits the fan. When there's things that need you to rise up and pay attention to, um, Canadians kind of brush it under the rug, being, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be okay," and then kind of just brush it by the side. What kind of motivated you to be like, okay, I gotta leave everything. I gotta leave my home. I gotta leave everything right now and fucking drive up because it's not a far away, and you were there the whole time. Like I have friends who went up. Unfortunately, because of my business, I couldn't leave at the time. But my in laws went up and to support. What drove you? Like, what was your main motivational factor to say, "Fuck it, I'm getting in the car, I'm going."
Yeah, well, the main motivating factor for everything I did during the measures that we saw over the last few years. I'll try to be careful with my words to not get your podcast flagged too much.
Oh, dude, I'm shadow banned and fucking thing beyond belief. I don't give a fuck at this point. Look, say whatever you want, man.
Yeah, so the main motivating factor for me was to always build community and bring people together and give them, a sense of hope, a connection. It ties together with what I do with the tribal mind and psychology with self sabotage. Creating an environment of people that are supporting the lifestyle that you want, and obviously, in regard to the conversation I had, being sovereignty and freedom of choice, and our basic rights, God given rights as man on this planet. So that's always been the fundamental base structure to what I was doing. I never really cared a whole lot about
Yeah,
trying to change things politically or anything like that. Even when I started organizing rallies in Winnipeg here, it was just to get people together. Give them a sense of hope and sanity with other people that are like minded with the same thoughts, so they could share their thoughts with people.
yeah,
And so when the convoy rolled through here, and I saw that, I knew it was. I just felt the power, the energy as they were rolling through, and knew I needed to go and be a part of that to help build that up and utilize my the resources I have, the influence I have, sorry, on social media to get the word out and really show what was happening and just see where I could be of use, And as I said, I was just boots on the ground, didn't have any part in it, and that evolved quite a bit as I got down there with taking part in this and that, helping things get along. So
yeah,
it was really the draw to just keep community building together and keep that snowball effect rolling as it grows bigger and bigger, and just give people that sense of hope, and also be a man that is not have another man down there who, no matter what happens, is going to stand,
yeah, yeah.
and hold true to the end, because I knew
No,
from what we saw that was lacking.
yeah. Now, what you said, something there that was really interesting that I think we need to focus on is like your attendance there was not politically motivated. It wasn't because you were trying to upheave the government and cause some fucking revolution of change and take down the dictator fuck Trudeau, right? But it was like, and that's important because a lot of people who was on the outside and just kind of paid attention to what CTV and Global News and all those fucking media outlets put out there. They were putting out there that everyone there was some sort of like, as our wonderful PM said, a right wing extremist, right? Whereas from my point of view, from your point of view, and I've spoken to a lot of other people who were involved with that movement, it was never about government. It was about standing up for our rights and freedoms. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, why do you believe that freedom is so important? Because when we look at that movement that happened last year, and then we talk to some other Canadians that are quite removed from things, so to speak, right? That either they consciously are not paying attention because they don't want to accept the facts of what's going on, or they know what's going on and just say, "I don't care." But from where I live in Wolfville, Toronto. Like I live in a fucking cesspool of woke NDP and liberal area. Unfortunately, I'm stuck there for a little bit. But they would argue to me that we are free. We get to wake up in the morning, you get to go to work, you get to go to the store, you get to buy whatever you want, you get to do this. Whereas from people like me and you, who I would observe as more of a free thinking type of Canadian, we viewed this whole last 2 or 3 years as an attack on our freedom and an attack on our sovereignty as Canadians and our God given rights that we were born here. So, like, why do you believe that it's so important, and why is there that disconnect between some Canadians that think that we still do have freedom, whereas from the real perspective that I'm taking it from was we're losing it day by day.
Mm. Yeah, well, you somewhat answered the question as you were proposing it, with our God-given rights and sovereignty over ourselves. One key factor that ties in with the latter part of your conversation there being the less, or let's even just say the more control that there is, the more control over what we see, what we're told, where we need to go, who we can hang out with, the more that comes into mind, the more people are susceptible to losing the one thing that we are given without a doubt as human beings on this planet is the control over our thoughts.
Yeah,
And now, obviously, that doesn't completely take it away, but it greatly manipulates it and really steers us to areas of weakness and control. We're seeing it more and more with, news being controlled, and that's one of the biggest things we were doing in Ottawa. And I knew at the end that it was a success, even though a lot of people, lost their hope when the riot police came in. And for me, shortly after I got there, I knew this was
yeah.
going to end with riot police coming in. I was hopeful that we could get everybody to just sit down and single Canada. But when the tear gas came flying and a pepper spray,
You got that's a different story when that shit gets flying, right?
yeah. But regardless, we stood ground in noncompliance, peaceful noncompliance. And one of the biggest factors that was the success of that was us using these devices that we have, which are often used against us, but it can also be used for good, as you're doing here.
Yeah,
And many of us do, to show the world that what you're seeing on mainstream news is not the truth. Look around everywhere. We're showing you countless different individuals that are painting the true picture of what it is, which is completely different on the screen, right? And that ties in with what I'm relating to with, the control over what we see, the control over this environment. We are being preyed upon with our what you can consider, our reptilian brain. We have our prefrontal cortex, which is our most evolved part of the brain that only
yeah,
humans and primates have. That is control of conscious thinking, willpower, goal setting, long-term thinking, and then our reptilian part, more tied with the limbic system, is activated on a high amount. We go more into it when our stressors, when we're in our fight or flight response,
yeah,
and that is being controlled by all of this, right? When we go into that system, we're susceptible as the tribal mind. We want to go along to get along, to survive and thrive, right? It's impulse thinking, going with what's being seen in repetition, what's being told to us. So the more that environment is controlled around us and obviously aimed towards what's not best for us, and it's hard for anybody to argue that when you really look around and take an assessment of today's world and what's being pushed in the environment and advertised all over, right? It's just
yeah.
poor quality health standards, and you name it from there, right? So
Well, I
the
mean,
important. Go ahead.
sorry to cut you out. One of the most frustrating things is I'm in the health and fitness industry. I run a mixed martial arts gym. I do tons of personal training. I'm a professional fighter. One of the most frustrating things for me over the last 3 years is I'm sitting here and they're talking about, first of all, the people who are talking about health are unhealthy and fat as fuck. So that's a big issue to me. Secondly, not once were the institutions that actually help reverse and help against the disease that was so terrible that we would all die from it. Not once were those institutions promoted or helped or even like simply telling people, hey, go outside, get some vitamin D, do these things, eat
Well,
healthy. All
it,
those simple things that I say to a client on for day one, like someone comes to me and like, how do you lose weight? I'm like, well, drink more water. Like, really? I'm like, yeah, just drink fucking more water. Start with that. Like
well,
all the
it's all by design, right? And they shut
yeah,
down the gyms and kept the alcohol and pot stores open, all the fast food stores open, because working out and being healthy is one thing that's going to put you in that,
yeah,
that prefrontal cortex I was talking about, and the stressors of not doing so and eating all this shit food and drinking alcohol and all these different things are putting you in that limbic system, easily controlled state to environmental influences, right? We can a second part of my answer to that question would be, I'm a man of God, and define that however you want. I define it different than most people,
yeah,
but our bodies here are conduits to spirit. Anybody really meditates on this. It's hard to deny. We have this connection inside that really knows
yeah,
where to direct us and can tell us. It's like a lie detector for the environment around us if we're connected to it. And the more that we have control pushed on us, and especially with what's being injected into us, if that becomes something that is mandated, I do believe this severs that connection to at least some degree, and that is an aim to
Yeah,
have
yeah.
us disconnected from that greater source, the consciousness that we all have access to, with the quantum computer of the universe, with all the known factors that can guide us to living our best life and really rise up. So it's important on so many fronts, right? It's yeah.
Well, I felt like it was an attack on spirituality. That's for sure. Like before I got married, I was very like not. I didn't think about God or religion or that much. And my wife comes from a very strong Christian family. Her dad's a pastor, and you know, obviously she broke me down a little bit. She showed me the way, and when I became a Christian, one of the biggest things for me was that as a martial artist, as a fighter, I always like being in control, right? Because when I'm out of control, I'm fucking losing or I'm getting my ass kicked, right? So I think one of the biggest things that faith has helped me with is sometimes I can't stay in control of everything. And so sometimes I just have to, like, my wife will have to sit me down. She's like, fuck, Shaun, tell her all my problems. She's like, Ashton, you just gotta trust in God. You just gotta trust in God that, you know, our bills will be paid. You gotta trust in God that these situations that are gonna work out, they're beyond our control. You've done everything you can possibly do to rectify the situation. You just have to trust and let go. And it's still hard for me to this day because I'm a big control freak because, like, as you know, like, MMA fighters are the most relentlessly training athletes on the planet, and because we have so much things to cover, right? I have to worry about all these different arts, and so I've always overworked and thought I was not doing enough, and I'm not in control, and the other guy is working harder than me. Whereas if I just took a minute, you know, remembered my faith and trust in what I'm doing and the things that I do and the people around me, those situations will work out. And I found that this whole, not just this whole last 3 years, but continuing, like even today, was an attack on faith and people's spirituality. Like today in the media, I don't know if you saw this. Toronto Star posted some ridiculous article saying it was a privilege, not a right, for your kid's parent not to know their kid's gender identity, right? So like, I'm sorry, fuck you. I'm the parent. It's my right, my God-given right. I've been given the responsibility of taking care of these children. I got 2 kids, and now you're telling me it's not my right to know what they're thinking and their decisions and a decision that they make when they're a minor. Like when I was growing up, shit, if I did something bad, my mom knew right away. Right? Like before I got home, my mom would be there. I grew up in a brown house, so she'd be there with the belt ready to go. But like it's an attack on the nuclear family. In my opinion, it's an attack on masculinity too. It's an attack on freedom of religion and assembly because like we had tons of situations where you couldn't even go to your church, your place of worship during the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and we had um, pastors and worship leaders being arrested and treated like we have criminals in Canada that are treated better than what those people were treated during the pandemic, like actual criminals who do unspeakable things. And I found that we're in this real big rabbit hole. And I'm not saying Canada's singular. I think the U.S. and a lot of other places are the same. Do you feel like this is an attack on human spirituality, human religion, as well as those other things I mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I was laughing inside at your battle with the surrender in your walk with God, and that's definitely the case, right? There's a universal flow. I do believe strongly in willpower, and we can do our best to go against it, but it's like fighting up a pretty strong river. Sometimes it's best just to let go and ride the bends with it, but we do have control over our thought. So it's our perspective on these situations that we're faced with, right? If you want to entertain negative thoughts with law of compensation states with time, you're going to have that come in fruition, or you can entertain positive thoughts. I definitely agree with you. An attack on the nuclear family, masculinity. I'll mention as well femininity. We could look at that even previously, where it was so many factors promoting women to get outside the home and away from their real superpower of raising these kids to be very strong and critical thinkers who can lead the free world, so to say, and hand them over to the system. Come prove your worth in the workplace against men. Equality and really not. I shouldn't even say that. A lot be lack of a better term. More so, let's shine a light for you to follow that. Equality means you prove your worth. You're just the same as men's attributes and what they're doing, and putting aside to the wayside of what your superpowers actually are. Not to say you can't do things in the workplace that the man can, but you have things that a man cannot do. You create
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
You have a nurturing a tendency to you that is unlike what a man has to give a child. Both do in their own way, but um, women are the ones who are bringing children into this world, and you hand the children over to the system, and then as well, there's a two-front kind of double-edged sword with inflation and everything just being jacked up. So now we need, even those who don't want to be out in the workplace, they gotta
they gotta
get,
work. Yeah,
gotta work to get to income household to survive. So you got your kids in this indoctrination camp all day, which of course there's some good things in there, but a lot of it is just designing them to be another cog in the wheel, victim to tribalism in the environmental world around them. Just listen to what you're told and regurgitate it, right? And
yeah,
preying upon what we're born with, that reptilian brain, as I was talking about as kids. Obviously, you probably watched your two children as they looked at you walking around. They started walking. You gave
yeah,
them congratulations. You encouraged them with positive reinforcement, right? So they kept doing it. And the things that they go to do, whether reaching for something that you tell them, no, bad, don't do that. So they're not going to want to do that. That gets preyed upon, right? We get success wins with doing well at regurgitating the information, and then we get failures for not, right? So we look at that in the world today as that's progressed, really preying upon that instinct nature of us. When we look at the world around us, well, now look at what happened, right? You wonder why so many educated intellectual people went along with things, like, right, if so many people were shaking their head at that, and you're missing really just the simple basics of neuroscience with how it works. With people want to go along with the bigger tribe, the bigger herd, because
yeah,
instinctively they feel safer, right?
yeah,
They can survive and thrive with that. And if there's positive reinforcement, that's a safeguard, right? If they're on the news, which our mind automatically, well, not so many people
yeah.
anymore today,
Not
but
anymore.
before we would, if you're on TV, you're somebody of importance that the bigger herd follows, right? So
Yeah,
let's follow what they're saying. And then celebrity influencers. And then the safest card for that tribal mind to follow is not only what's being positively reinforced, but the opposite behavior being shunned, right? Like,
yeah,
how many kill the hostage situations were there, right? If you look at like a bank robbery where they prove their seriousness by popping off a hostage, right? Let's look
yeah,
at that at the beginning of things, where they completely ostracized and removed the credentials from how many medical professionals who spoke up at the beginning, right?
yeah,
That was like, hey, we're not messing around. You shut up and
yeah,
follow along, right? Or you're going to be really put outside this tribe and you're not going to have a good time.
yeah.
So absolutely attack on it all, man, on every front.
And it's fun. The tribalism was one of the things I saw quite a bit because um, I wouldn't say I'm a rebel, but I like yeah, I am a rebel. I push the grain, right? Reason I like like a lot of the teens and stuff that are my dad to me. The reason I tell them the reason I'm an entrepreneur is not because I was born to be an entrepreneur. The reason I'm an entrepreneur is I can't listen to fucking others. Right? I push the envelope too much. I like to do my own thing. It's just my personality. So I gravitated towards business ownership and fighting because it was something I could do on my own, and I didn't have to follow the crowd. And one of the things I noticed when because I got to interact with so much people during the pandemic, whereas some people were locked down, I didn't stop doing shit. I kept running my private training business. I was going to people's homes. You know, some people would be like, I'd be training them, man. I'd just be training them, Shaun, and they'd be like, "Did you take the vaccine yet?" I'm like, "Just finish your set. Finish your set. Did you take it? Just finish your set." their justification to me would be, you should just do it. Just do it. I'm like, that's not a fucking reason for me to just do something because you want. It's because they were asking me constantly because they wanted to know if I was part of with them on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I, as a professional, I had to sidestep it a little bit, and I didn't want to answer because at that specific time, people were very sensitive to the issue because of how they were pushing it and how they were representing it in the media. But you know, to this day, I'm comfortable saying, yeah, fuck no, I didn't take shit. I didn't take it, and I didn't take it because I'm against anything. I took it because it was a decision, or I didn't take it because it was a decision that me and my wife felt was in the best interest of us. I got COVID very fucking early on because I knew I was gonna get COVID. Like it was like, okay, there's this thing out there, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna stop doing it. It's a fucking black belt. I'm gonna keep rolling until I die. And I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, well, I'm gonna get sick or something. So we got sick very early on, and we got over it very fast, like most people do. And so I didn't think it was a need for me to do it. And what really um, reinforced our decision was I actually went to my doctor, and we had to pay for the antigen test, the antibody test. So we paid for it. We got the test, and our antibodies were through the roof. And we did it like 8, 10 months after we had COVID, right? And I asked my doctor, and I'm like, I know there's a lot of stuff out there pushing certain things, but I'm like, as a medical professional, do you think based on the results that we came back, our blood test, if this vaccine was a good idea for me or my wife to take? And he said, well, I'm not an immunologist, but in my opinion, you guys are safe. There's no reason for you to do something like that. And it was refreshing because I finally found a doctor that wasn't influenced by anything else, money or any other governing bodies that they were telling them to say certain things. And it was also refreshing to know that I made a decision, and this person respected it enough to tell me their honest opinion and didn't try to push some sort of agenda on me. And it's very rare to find that, and it's very rare still that that's happening because, as there's renewed pushes for all this stuff that's coming, and I mean, I don't know what the future holds, but all I know is I made a decision and I stuck by it, and I'm happy with it to this day, and I will never regret it, and I never put anybody else down for doing the opposite thing I did, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's fun in games where we go on social media and you see memes about things and you're like, oh, that's fucking funny. But I'm never going to judge you as less of a person because you did something different than I did. And I think that's where we got lost
Mm-hmm.
the last
100%.
year. Because, you can do things your way and I can do things my way, but we can still be friends and still chill, or we don't even have to be friends. You just do your thing, I do my thing. We be Canadians, and I think that's, if anything, that was lost that I want to find back is that. I don't know if you agree with me, but
Yeah, I do agree with you, and I think it's the world was already really spiraling down on that, and this has been a great way, and whether implanted by God or not, to help us come back to that and help us really start seeing ourselves and everybody else, all from the same source, and respecting everybody's individual journey, even if we don't agree with the steps they're taking.
yeah,
Of course, respecting it, assuming it's not harming others and being projected upon others in a manipulated way, and to also appreciate that we live in this. Well, we live in under the veil of duality, I'll say, in this world, and each side has its purpose.
yeah,
And there is a beautiful thing happening right now, this awakening and people evolving to rise up past it and bring unity and discovering the need to find the common ground and love each other regardless of opposing views and really come together to rise up. And it's all been fast tracking that. It changed it for me because I started off on the foot of getting pretty fucking angry at people.
Yeah.
And, if you look at my content from the beginning, I was yelling at people, rah, rah, rah. Uh, Not yelling at people in there, but yelling at
Yeah.
people in message, and just like saying stop going along and whatnot. And then I had, a revelation happen where I just changed my tune on that. And that primed me perfectly for Ottawa. And that was another thing that Ottawa really finished off on that seed planted. We'll say, helped it sprout
Yeah.
and really grow, as it was just, love and just unity. There's people of all walks there, vaccinated, not vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful thing. And I know if I didn't have that revelation beforehand, going to Ottawa would not have been the same experience. And just like many people I know who contacted me when the riot police were coming in, they didn't come down because they knew they couldn't keep their cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if I didn't have that revelation shortly before, I would have been in the same boat. I would have been doing something stupid that probably would have had me behind bars still to this day.
And that's why to this day I don't do certain things. Like I don't go to bars. I don't go out with people. Like I've been invited once, right? But I limit myself to they're like, oh, what are you doing on Saturday? And I'm like, I'm going home, hanging out with the family, playing Lego. That's what I do. I'm an adult Lego. I'm an adult Lego nerd, right? So like I've distanced myself from those kind of things because like, and I'll see it with other athletes too because they'll get in trouble. I'm like, what the fuck were you doing there? You're trying, you know what I mean? It's like I find that for me, this is my personal thing. The way I stay out of trouble is by removing myself from those situations. So if it means living a little bit of a more boring life, so be it. But I find that in my previous youth, I used to get in trouble just because I was like, oh fuck it, oh yeah, I'll go out with you guys, and then I'm doing something stupid, right?
Choosing your environment is just as important as the food you choose to consume.
Yeah. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to kind of circle back to it about the masculinity. I know there's this stupid term that's thrown around, toxic masculinity, which I don't fucking buy. But why do you think? What do they? I don't know if it's government or crazy lefties or any, but what do they gain by trying to destroy masculinity?
Well, the protectors and providers, right? It, excuse me, started on many fronts where there's a lot of nonsense being pushed out there. And if you want to call it the wokeism movement behind it, where they would speak out and really, lash out to men and the terminology of toxic masculinity started coming out. And men just like, hey, this is just fucking ridiculous. I'm just going to shut up and do my own thing and let these people, do their thing, not realizing really what that was going to evolve into
Yeah,
and just how important their stand, or at least shining a light on the truth. And yeah, standing in their truth, speaking, words of truth from the lips that they have was to, put a halt to that, or at least slow it down, or at least, which, and as I say that, I don't know if that's even a realistic thing to say, a realistic thought, because I do feel it's purposeful. But at the very least, doing that stand, taking that stand to shine the lights for other people, other men specifically, other the boys growing up on how to really stand your ground and protect and provide and know the difference between good and bad, positive and negative, and also understanding the divine masculine and feminine, the different roles that we both have here, to come in a union together and complement each other
yeah,
to fully evolve and create the best atmosphere we can, not only for ourselves and our family, but everybody we have around us.
yeah. And I know you made a post about it a while ago, but you were talking about how just because a man is very masculine doesn't take it away from doesn't make a woman submissive. You know what I think? You know what I mean? Like
Yes. Yeah.
because like I if by their definition of toxic masculinity, I'm toxic as fuck. I like guns. I like fighting. I do I go shoot my bow. I like hunting. I like doing all those fucking things that they would classify as toxic masculinity. I do it on a daily basis. Um, but my wife is there's nothing submissive about her. Like she can stand her ground against me if she wanted to, no problem. We have a great relationship. Why is it that people view that if a man is strong and displays very strong masculine traits, that the woman would then, you know, fall submissive to him, or she's vulnerable to him. Like, why has that kind of that mentality been pushed along?
Well, it's been what's preyed upon and what we see, happening with men who actually are toxic. It's, not their traits of masculinity. They're just themselves are toxic men,
Yeah,
embodying a toxic attitude and just belief system. And it's probably a ton of pain inside and different trauma where they haven't really resolved it and really understood it and released it and just projecting that onto the world, right? So that's been highlighted, and we see it highlighted in movies as well. The biggest propaganda machine that we have of our day. Well, actually, that's not true now with social media and whatnot. Um, so it's been pushed as a narrative, and it's been tied together with the nuclear family on just being see this whole system's wrong, right? And
yeah,
really not fully dissecting the situation on what was going on with that specific individual or those individuals, the couple at hand, or whoever was involved, and what kind of substances were involved, what kind of toxins, what kind of EDCs were involved, all these different things that just debilitate us to operate out of, again, that prefrontal cortex, our area of logic, reason, long-term thinking,
yeah,
and more in our limbic system, which is the emotional processing center. So it's again, double-edged blade on that, with how many fronts have come in on the attack and just the divide, right? Divide and conquer is always going to be one of the biggest plans to deploy for pulling people apart. And man and woman in a sacred union together, it's an unstoppable force nearly,
yeah.
when really coming to full terms with embodying who they are, both the masculine and feminine side. So whatever means necessary to pull that apart is what we've been seeing deployed upon us.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And there's one thing that I tell a lot of people when they ask me, like, because I'm always working, I'm always grinding. If I'm not teaching, classes till 10, and I close. I get home at like 10 every night. I'm training myself. I'm building my businesses, and they're like, how do you get the energy to do that? And I give them one simple answer. I say it's my wife, and they're like, what do you mean it's your wife? She doesn't give you any. I'm like, she gives me energy by the support and the foundation that she lays for me to allow me to do these things, right? Because I've seen it in the opposite sense. Because I'm blessed in the sense where in my business I get to interact with a lot of people, and I get to see the opposites that what I've encountered with my relationship, where the spouse or the girlfriend or whoever is not as supportive of the other person's goals, aspirations, dreams, and I may be guilty of this too. I don't tell it to her enough, but that's where I gain my inspiration, and that's where
Yeah, tell her, man. Tell
yeah,
her
I know,
lots, brother.
I know. I got to do more, but that's where I gain it because when my support system is constantly telling that me they're proud of me, when my support system is constantly helping me when I need the help, when my support system, I'm no different than anybody just because I've gotten in a cage and fought, and I have a black belt, and I've had all this experience under pressure. I still experience anxiety. Like, to this day, or I think about last year, I was a very big anxiety denier. Right? I used to think, oh, fuck it, that's not anxiety actually. Until I went through about a depression, right? And it was at the end of that, or not the end, but in the middle of that last lockdown, whenever the fuck it was, 2022 January-ish, right? Um, and it's at those moments where where you're really broken, where you're falling apart. Like, I was falling apart a little bit, and it wasn't because life was super hard for me. I had everything under control. It was just the the pressure from all the changes and all the lockdowns and all those things that added up. Just like it did for everybody else, it added up for me. I just might have hit it a little bit better than other people. But it was at those moments where I relied on the strength of my wife, the strength of my that femininity that she could provide me, right? Because sometimes I need a guy to fucking punch me in the shoulder and say, "Shut the fuck up and get back in there." sometimes I need somebody just to hug me and tell me I'm doing a good job, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. The masculine desires that, containment and nourishment from the feminine, especially the divine feminine, pushing forward. And if you as a man are stepping in, and even at the times where you're falling short, but she can see from your past delivery of, following your words with the actions, knows that you're a leader and she feels protected and safe, where
yeah,
she can open herself up and allow her masculine guard to come down. She can provide you that nourishment that you need in those times, or even at the good times, all times that you need it, right? And
yeah,
as men, that's one thing that we desire, right? We want that support from the feminine. Yeah, we're going ahead on our mission. You're here right at our side. You have what you want to focus on as well, but you're supporting us in that process unfolding, right? So
yeah.
it's a beautiful container when two are coming into that and can really help each other just blossom into all who they can be.
Yeah, and that's why I tell a lot of people I'm blessed, right? I'm blessed to have that, but also too, because I have that, it's my responsibility to push forward. Because I would be, to me, my life would be an extreme failure if I had that support and I didn't do the things that I was capable of doing. I didn't push forward. To me, that wouldn't be able to look at the man in the mirror. Now,
Well,
staying
from
on,
my
yeah,
experience, with all the people I've worked with in my coaching, a lot of the men who would be saying something like that, asking, how you get that energy and whatnot, or smoking pot every day, drinking every other day, watching porn, jerking off a few times a day, just wasting their energy, getting their dopamine reward system just hijacked from all these quick dopamine fixes that are an empty void on really what fulfills us, right? And which just
yeah,
drains our energy. We only have so much energy in a given day. So we have to be very conscious of where we're spending it. And when
yeah,
you have that container and you're void from a lot of those things, and hey, I'm not saying, when I mention marijuana and these things, I'm not saying, absolutely negative to the totality of it all. It's not what I'm saying, but
right.
a lot of people
No,
are abusing all these things
yeah,
and just wasting their energy and making energy exchange, not even realizing just how much they're just giving away with complete waste and bringing them to a place of lack where they can't deliver in the areas that they really want, which then brings them further down because they're not fulfilling their mission or going after it.
yeah. And no, I know you weren't shitting on weed, but like I actually have never smoked a day in my life, but because of how rough our MMA is, and I've had so many surgeries and injuries due to the sport. Like I'm a user of CBD, and I use uh, at night, especially after I'm done training. Even though my body's broken from it, I still do it. Don't ask me why. I just loved it. But I found that with the right amount, I use some of the oil with the THC, and it definitely does help me therapeutically. Now, I would 100% stop using it if I had a desire to use it during the day. Like if I woke
Mm,
up and I'm like, fuck it, I need to. Uh,
yeah.
that would be my cue to stop. But I don't have that desire. Luckily, I know that each individual is different, and some people have addictive personalities. I'm lucky in the sense where I don't have that want. But in the other way, it did save. Like I wouldn't be running my business. I wouldn't be still thinking about competing if I didn't have that. And I know that's not what you were saying, but I just want to put that out there for people. That CBD is wonderful if used correctly. If used correctly. Um,
Yeah, what you mentioned there should be highlighted in terms of that cue. If I have the desire to use it during the daytime, that's going to be an indicator I need to remove this from my life, and
yeah,
it's not to say that there's no benefit of using such a thing in the daytime at all. But if you have a desire to do so for no reason, just probably wanting to escape from whatever's bothering you in life where you're not fulfilling, if you're using it as a spiritual enlightenment or connection or something like that, that evolves to daily use or habitual use, it's, you might want to really assess things. I just did a recent podcast on marijuana and it, we painted shine a light on the dark side of it, but still spoke on the positives. And of
yeah.
course, everybody just got up in arms with the negative side that we shine a light on. Just
Well,
like
no,
any,
I,
there's a
I was I was negative about it for almost my entire life, to be honest with you, because there's some people around me. I'm not going to mention them by name because that's mean, but some people around me who I've seen their potential not fulfilled because of it. And it wasn't even the substance in itself; it was the company that they kept when they were
Hmm.
using that substance, and it really hindered their development and their ability to become the best version of them. So I had the negative view upon it in my entire life. And then it wasn't until I tore my pec and I had a pec surgery, and they were shoving the fucking oxys at me.
Mm.
I did it before. I've told people this story when I had my right shoulder done, my labrum replaced when I was in university playing football, and they gave me a bunch of oxys. It took like one or two during the recovery, but then I finished my exams early, and I was waiting for my roommate because he was driving me back. So it's like, you know what, fuck it, I got nothing to do for a week. He's got a week till his last exam, so I'm gonna play Call of Duty and take these fucking things. And my personality was, I'm just gonna stay up all night and play and try to beat the drug and see if it will. And for like 3 weeks, Shaun, I was fucking a zombie. I was taking it, and the bottle finished, and I thank God to this day that when the bottle was done, I didn't go look for another one, right?
Mm.
Because that's how it starts, right? It was just for me, it was just a kid, and it was just something I was doing for fun, play fucking video games and take this shit, and I I'm thankful every day that didn't turn into anything else. So that's why when they presented me when I continued to have all these injuries and they presented these drugs to me, I didn't take it, right? And then when I had my pec, I'm like, I need something, right? Just to get rid of some of this pain. And that's when I started using the CBD in a very small fashion. And then over the last couple of years, as you know, I'm getting older, so things started to pile up. And trust me, I don't have the greatest genetics. Brown people don't have the greatest genetics for fighting. So I kept getting these injuries, and it was one thing that helped me really stay in the game, right? And I will be able to do this to the day I die now because of it. But at the same time, I'm willing to get rid of it if I find it's starting to impact my life that way, or I'm needing it like that. Um, Now, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is with all the stuff that is going on in the world right now, a lot of evil, a lot of control, like we talked about. Um, how does one go about breaking free of those things and taking back ownership of their health and themselves?
Well, your environment's going to be the biggest thing. Um, what you're consuming, not just your environment. Let's just say what you're consuming as a whole, internally and externally. So internally, of course, being the food you're eating, the water, quality of water, everything that you're putting inside your body and on your body as well, right? Getting away from all the endocrine and endocrine disrupting chemicals that are throwing your hormones off completely out of whack. That's messing with you. There's another part to the whole, divide with the masculine and feminine. The atrazine in the water. That's, I think it was Alex Jones who said, I think in like the 80s or I don't know, 90s, I
Yeah,
can't remember where it was, where the water was making the frogs go gay and everybody just laughed at him. It's been shown. Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually a true story.
yeah,
It's actually what's happening. And of course, that test was just done on frogs, and well, we could possibly say the test has also been done on humans, and we can see. But anyway, we'll leave that
That's
as I
another
said.
rabbit hole. That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah, change your environment though. You're a product of your environment, right?
Yeah,
So one of the biggest things is just getting a positive thought, really leaning into the universal laws, whatever your beliefs are. Atheist or Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever. There's natural laws of this universe beyond that, just of gravity, to use them to your advantage because they're there
yeah,
and they're real. Call it whatever you want, but they're very real. So one of the biggest things is going to be getting positive thought going inside your mind, which that's going to start. The best place to start with that is gratitude. Just find a way to be thankful for everything. Thankful you woke up. Every little thing you can be grateful for. Focusing on the abundance you have and not the lack. Do your best not to stare at the problems. Of course, you want to be informed and you want to be questioning everything, but I have repetitive message on following the 90-10 rule. It's one of the just such simple things next to gratitude, where spend 10% of your time and energy focusing on problems,
yeah,
becoming aware of them, and 90% of your time and energy on the solutions. And some of the biggest solutions are going to be changing your environment, the people you work with, the people that you socialize with, your family. Like, and I'm not saying completely disown your family, but hey,
no,
if you've got a bunch of negative family that's, just promoting alcoholism or all the bullshit that you don't want to go with, that's being pushed upon us from powers. I don't even like to say powers that be anymore. We'll just say tyrannical government. Learn to put healthy boundaries up. And when I mentioned workplace, well, people are like, well, fuck, I need to work. I can't, lose take a financial hit. And if you really were able to take a full assessment, if you are surrounded by negative people in your workplace, whether they just be full of addictions or negative behavior, negative attitude, talking negatively, gossiping, or all about the wokeism, as you put it,
Yeah.
in the longer picture, you are going to lose financially, along with much more from keeping yourself in that environment. So you're gonna excel in a place where you're surrounding yourself with people who are living the life or in lifestyle that you want and
Yeah.
that you want to embody. So be careful of what you're watching. There's subliminal messages in all of the fucking content that's put out there.
Yeah.
If you dive into psychology, neuroscience at all, like learning just how that part of the brain I spoke about at the beginning of the show works, the people who control this world or control, society, will say, for a better term, are very versed in how that works and are manipulating your mind
Yeah.
to act out behaviors, self-sabotaging behaviors, the music you listen to, all of that. Like, take a real account of your environment, right?
My,
And
my, wa- my sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but my wife gets annoyed at me with that now because we'll be watching a movie and I'll pause and I'll be like, see what they found in there. It's a subliminal message. She's like, Ashton, can we just enjoy the movie? I'm like, no, they're trying to train me during this movie. I'm like,
yeah, all of them. All of them. Count how many times, like in any movie, or mostly any movies, how often you see alcohol, how often you see coffee in the background.
smoking is the big.
Smoking, yeah, vaping, like caffeine. I'm not saying like don't utilize caffeine at all, but overindulgence in caffeine is direct result of jacking up your cortisol, your fight or flight system, your stress response, and putting you in that limbic part of your brain. It's a very, very great way to control people. And I know people hear that and just get up on arms because that's their favorite beverage for most people. And I'm not saying, hey, don't enjoy it. I used to drink it every day and I've cut down to twice a week. And I have a
Good
more
for you.
healthy relationship with that because I don't want my cortisol jacked up all the time. So on top of changing your environment and the things you're consuming, what is this doing the things I'm consuming to my stress response, and as well the conversations and the stuff you're looking at. You want to minimize your stress response. There's healthy stress, acute stress from exercise and do your
Yeah.
MMA, cold water therapy, breath work, all these things that you want to do that are going to help build up your stress threshold,
Yeah.
but not things that are going to give you chronic stress, which is going to lead to so many things like inflammation. There's so many diseases, and most importantly with the world today, mind control.
Yeah.
Because for everybody who's listening to your show, mostly, other than the haters that probably pop on, are awake, we'll call it, to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And I'll just say, and do more to change your environment and do all these things I'm talking about, because there's so much more that you're not awake to yet.
Oh yeah.
And I've been seeing that through the years of my progression, and I've come to the awareness that there is so much left that I'm not aware of. And I know the more I treat this vessel as the temple that it is, the more I'm going to be able to connect with that and rise up above the bullshit, no matter what I face.
Yeah.
So don't. And one of the biggest parts to all of that, get the fuck away from the fear.
Yeah.
Do not let fear penetrate your mind or your heart, and know whatever you allow in your heart must flow out.
Yeah.
So really, really, set those healthy boundaries and do your best to love everybody as yourself. But setting healthy boundaries is tough love that has a place in that, right? You want to have tough love on yourself at times as well, just like you're talking about your
Oh,
buddies. You need that fucking punch to get going sometimes. So yeah, a
yeah.
lot to kind of just throw out there and ramble off on, but
I don't,
those are my
no,
biggest.
rambles
Yes.
are good, man. That's what we do. We're supposed to ramble. But there was a good thing you said there about ownership of your stress, right? Because and I can give a great example of this because this past year was incredibly stressful for me and my wife. Not because of it was our own stress. We opened up a gym. I fulfill one of my life dreams of finally getting it done. But it wasn't something we were looking to do. Like when this year started, we weren't looking to open up. It was just an opportunity that presented itself, and I would have been a fool to say no. So I had to do it, and knowing that I had to do it, it came along with a lot of self-sacrifice to my own health because, um, you know, we got the place, we had to renovate it, and you get a couple weeks to do that. And when everyone's like, "Oh, a couple weeks," I don't have a lot of fucking money. I'm a fighter. I spent my entire 20s pursuing fighting and getting injured, right? And so, how much, savings do you think you accumulate from that? No, you lose a lot of money. Like, it's only now that we've put things together and we're off and running. Like, I'm actually getting to sit back and enjoy the fruits of my labor, of all the punishment I put my body through the last 15 years. But we got the opportunity. We had to renovate. So when I was doing that, I still had to I still had to see my clients. So I'm in this place, building it, then getting up, waking up off of like 3 or 4 hours sleep, training my clients, doing all that, and then getting back in here, getting it done. Because yeah, I could take a couple more months to do it. But as you both know, as you run a business, the longer you're not in business, the more your cash dries out, right? And so, I had to make that sacrifice. I had to say, okay, I'm gonna have to really to grind this out, and it came at a price. And what the price was is that by March I already gained like 15 pounds, and that was just stress weight. Um, I wasn't drinking enough water. That's another thing. I got so like I like coffee, but I was so dependent on caffeine to the point where I would drink coffees and then I fell back into this bad habit of energy drinks, right?
Mm.
Um, just because it would be like 6 o'clock. Fuck, we got to get this. I got to get this. We got to get this painting or whatever the fuck done. We have to get floors in by Monday. The guys are coming to help us with floors on Saturday. We got to get this done. So I'd take whatever stimulant I could to keep going. And I knew it was wrong. I'm in the health industry. I knew it was wrong. But it was a self-sacrifice I had to make at the moment, right? I knew it was a temporary thing. But once we got open and we were good to go, I I realized I had to spend time on myself, right? And one of the biggest things that I've learned in the last couple of months is how valuable one sleep is, right? I used to be able to get away with 5 hours and train twice a day, work 8 hours, sleep 5 hours, and do it again the next day and still be awesome. I'm like, okay, it's not happening anymore, right? I can tell you how different the week is when I have a bad night of sleep. Like, if I get 5 hours, like, I could still, even though I'm getting older and 34 now, even though I can still beat the shit out of young guys. I can still train twice a day. I can still run the business, whatever. But if I'm operating on 5 hours, I can't do it. And the reason I can't do it is not because I physically am not awake. I'm awake, but my mental state is a whole lot different because of like we were talking about the cortisol. I can
Hmm.
feel the difference in my brain and how I process my thoughts now between 6 hours of sleep and 7 hours of sleep. And
Well,
it's
absolutely. Your lymphatic system is what, while you're sleeping, and assuming that
yeah,
you don't have much caffeine in your system and your adenosine receptors are all able to function how they should naturally without the interruption of overdosing on caffeine. So that lymphatic system is what drains the toxic chemicals that build up in your brain throughout the day, right? Which is going to help you have that creativity and thought. And of course, the lower the stress level, the less you're in that emotional response. Something to point out to people that I don't think, or maybe just goes over their head, they don't really think about, is, our stress response, that fight or flight system, is the same response that activates if you're in the water in the ocean and getting attacked by a shark and you need to get the fuck away, or you're running
yeah,
away from a bear. It's the same response as toxins have on your body.
yeah,
Your body wants to get away from them. It's going to put you in the part of the brain that's impulsive, making impulsive decisions that can't think of long-term consequences,
yeah,
which sometimes serves us, but a lot of the times it doesn't, especially in today's world with how often we're in a chronic state of stress. So there's so much to be connected with, so much potential to get that stress level lowered.
yeah. Now, especially because I'm more aware of it, I'm more sensitive to it when it's happening. I'm like, okay, I need to get more rest. Like, maybe I'm not gonna do my Muay Thai. Maybe I'm just gonna lift a little bit of weights so I feel loose, and then I'm gonna fucking call it a day. Whereas I didn't do that in my 20s, and I got away with it, right? But that's
Uh,
also
I was the same for most of my 30s, man. Yeah, I get away. 5 hours of
yeah,
sleep, I feel great, but not realizing just how much potential. Yeah, I felt great, but when I started getting more of that sleep, and then just seeing just how much more creative I was, how much more I was in tune with my long term goals and wanting to plan things out and being able to really excel at accomplishing those things. It was huge.
Well, even my acceptability of news, like we said, there's a lot of bad shit every day. You can find
Mhm.
bad news
You're
if you
not
go
you're not
looking for
stuck
it.
in your emotional response center
Yeah,
anymore, right?
exactly. So like
Logic and reason.
when I was doing those renos at the start of the year, I wasn't paying too much attention to the political stuff because obviously I had other things to do, more important things to get done. But when I saw something that I didn't agree with or didn't like, I got fucking mad, right?
Hmm.
And it was because I was in an emotional and state where it made me that mad.
Yeah, backed up
Now,
stress. All the
whereas now,
toxins being pushed on us.
yeah, and then whereas now I'm like, okay, if something I see on the news or media makes me fucking angry, sometimes it does make me angry, but most of the time I'm like, okay, let me just sit on it for the night. Let me go to bed,
Mm,
get a good night's sleep, and think about it. And if it still pisses me off in the morning, then it was probably something good. But if it doesn't, I'm like, okay, okay. Right? And it's amazing that when you come to that, when you get to that realization of how to manage your body and manage that stress, like we're talking about, how you can manage those negative things a lot better. Like
huge.
I'm not angry at certain things, but like I disagree with it, but I'm not angry, right? Because if I spend the whole time and it's almost like this is what they want, but if they want you to be angry all the time, because then you
They
make
want to be angry and stressed out. You
yeah,
can, in my self sabotage course, I relate to the prefrontal cortex is bodyguard number one. And then your limbic system, or we'll call it your subconscious mind, even that acts on the automatic behaviors and the tribalism going along to get along, bodyguard number two. You want to keep bodyguard number one in the driver's seat as long as you can. And there's ways of conditioning bodyguard number two so when he takes over or she takes over, it's acting out behaviors you want to live that line up with your conscious wishes and desires. But bodyguard number one is where it's at. And one of the biggest things they can do to take out bodyguard number one, stress levels, increase your stress, right? Increase your stress, put fear in there that's going to get your stress response going, and also fix your gaze, right? So the
yeah,
television, why do you think during the pandemic, isolate at home, get away from people and stare at the screen?
yeah.
Within 90 seconds, it's been shown that it bypasses your conscious mind and goes right to your subconscious mind for programming.
Well, one of the things I noticed, and this is my 3-year-old, right? Because he likes YouTube Kids, right? And there's a couple of shows on there he likes. And so we're like, at first I was like, okay, sure, whatever. Then what I started noticing is when you give him control of this device, he'll watch like 20 seconds and then he'll fucking swipe and do something. Swipe and do something else. And what I noticed was that as he was doing that, his behavior when you take away that phone, you say, "Oh, it's time to take he'll walk off the screen," because it was kind of conditioning him not to be able to pay attention. Like
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you have the ability to change the stimulus at every single moment you want to, and to give that to a child is ridiculous. Let alone an adult, right? Like I see it with TikTok, where like, I unfortunately have an account. I don't like using it. I don't really use it that often, and I'll just post something, and I'm trying to get out. I press the back button, and it flips to a new video. I press the back button. I have to press the back button 3 times to get out of the fucking app. But the 3 times I press it, it flipped to a new video, trying to stimulate. Hey, if we put 3 videos on there before you exit, maybe you'll go back and click on it and go back in. And I'm like,
Yeah, welcome to Planet Mind Control. Let's fill you
yeah,
up with toxins, jack your stress levels up, and put propaganda all over the
yeah,
place.
and yeah. Well, at least I see it, but I hope other people don't see it. That was the other thing that we had a like. Technically, my son Benson, he was supposed to, because he's a late baby, he's a December kid. He was supposed to go to school this year, and we didn't send him because um, I just felt like it wasn't the time for him. You know what I mean? It was, and I know Dr. Peterson has talked a lot about, letting boys be boys, right? And that, putting them in an institution where they sit and put their hand up, yes, man, no, man. That's not an ideal way for boys to develop. And what I've noticed over the last 2 or 3 weeks, well, it's been a week and a half since they've been in school, but is his behavior is getting a lot bit better. But not only am I being able to spend more time with him one on one, but because I'll bring him to the gym here with me, and this is his education, right? I'll be like, go in there. It's a padded room for a 3-year-old. Like, how much fucking trouble can you get in? So I'll go in and let him run around for like an hour, while I'm doing my own training, and then I'll sit down with him and we'll start counting stuff. And I'll notice that when he's able to run around and get that energy out, he's able to sit down and we count and we do other like educational things, but without him having to like sit there with a pencil and him regurgitate. He's able to do these fun activities with me, and I've seen more development in that kid in the last 3 weeks than in any other time in his life because just letting boys be boys. And we had a hard time sending my daughter there too this year. Thankfully, she has a good teacher. She got the same. She's in kindergarten. She got the same teacher. He's a good dude that he used to train martial arts too, and I know some of the same people. So I trust him. But we were ready to if we went on the first day last week and we didn't like the teacher, we were ready to pull her out and homeschool her. It was like we were this close, and then
Mm.
finally they sent the email, and I'm like, okay, we got the same guy. She's got one more year in public education. Got one more year to earn some
Yeah, I'm
money,
in the
and
same boat with my daughter. She's just entered grade 5, and I want her homeschooled. We're a split family. I'm a co-parent very well, but she's not at the point where she wants her homeschool just yet. Sure it'll happen soon. So I've surrendered to the force that we were talking about before, and really just looking like, hey, we need some kids that are in the system with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I teach her how to critically think and how to challenge authority with respect and question the narrative. And she's there and still able to enjoy herself. And but thankfully, same as you, her teacher really seems great. And I went in there and didn't see any, wokeism propaganda all over the classroom. So that was nice to see.
yeah,
Um, yeah.
well, yeah,
So
I totally that was our biggest fear over the summer with the change, and I was like, I told my wife, if I go in there and I see anything, I'm pulling her out because I think the common thought among a lot of people, I see it in my family too, is like, oh, my kid is a good thinker. She won't get sucked into that, or he won't get sucked.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People are
And
underestimating just how susceptible the mind is to mind control.
yeah, and so and I tell them, I'm like, hey man, it doesn't matter how much confidence you have in your kid to resist that. Um, if it's being pushed on them every single fucking day, um, and they can't question it, it's going to become reality for them, and then it's going to become reality for you, and you're going to be fucked. So that's one of the reasons why we have a zero tolerance policy at our house. Like all of her shows that they watch have to be approved. She knows that, like, how Netflix and some of those other programs will, hey, are you still watching? You let her watch for a long time. She's not allowed to click. She's not allowed to have control of the remote. Basically, we have to keep in control of that, and not because I want to, but because I have to in order to protect what they're watching, right? And to keep in control of that. Because if I don't, then it's going to get to them somehow, and I don't want to have to deal with that. You know, as a parent, I don't want to have to deal with that. One of the things I wanted to say before we talk about before we wrap up, because I gotta almost start teaching some of these kids coming in soon. Um, Now, without I don't really want to get into it because I personally don't care, but some people would say, you do have a bit of a checkered past with history, right? And you've made some mistakes, like we all have. I've made a ton of mistakes. How do you shake that stigma of like what the old Shaun did or what the old Ashton has done, and move on to live a fulfilling, happy life? Because I think that you know, a lot of people get into trouble nowadays, right? You do something, you get into trouble, and the common message is that, you're going to screw up your future, right? And I want to, you know, let people know that, that's not the case. If you have made a mistake, as long as you haven't done something like you haven't fucking murdered somebody or something, that's the sort, right? I want people to know that it's okay to have made mistakes in your past and to um, sort of overcome those mistakes and to live a positive life after, sort of like what I when I follow you and I look at your story, that's what I gather from you, where you've made some mistakes and now you're living a positive life and you're trying to help others based on the lessons that you've learned. Like, how do you first of all shake the stigma? Because I know people do talk a lot of shit. They're like, why the fuck do you listen to this musclehead? Or you know what I mean? He's done all this shit. I know you've talked about you've had time in detention and stuff like that. How do you shake that stigma and still be able to live a fulfilling life and motivate others to do that as well?
Oh, couple things. Knowing where my heart is at is huge. And I don't have my heart or my mind clouded with substance abuse anymore. And I'm grateful for all the things that I've been through, for what they've taught me. As you said, I use them to teach and share that with other people. I felt I was led down that path for a reason. So I think, with that being said, in direct response to your question, if you have the thirst and search for wisdom, they're beautiful experiences in their own way on what they can provide you. If you're searching for that wisdom and the gift they can provide you, for every adversity, there is a seed of equivalent success. Of course, we have to take that seed first, look for it, find it, and then plant it and nurture it, right? So whatever you're going through, whether mistakes or debilitations that you're given to you from, circumstances out of your control, either way, they could be your greatest superpower. And if you utilize them to the best degree possible and just look at the good, fuck what other people say, know where your heart is at, you know who you are. Other people don't define you. And I think that's one of the traps of social media. We can get easily stuck on allowing other people to define our worth.
Yeah.
Whether you have worthiness issues from your upbringing or not, we're, again, tribal beings are very suggestible to wanting to be part of a tribe. So focus on a fucking tribe who supports you and doesn't look down on you and judge you for your past mistakes, and sees them and honors you for your process of unfoldment through this life, and knowing that it's part of your journey for who you're meant to become and the mission you have to fulfill.
There you go. That's beautiful. Well said. Before we wrap it up, let everyone know where they can find you and get in touch with you if they want to enlist some of your services, and how they can find you online and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And one, I'm grateful for what you're doing to put a message of inspiration out there to help people.
Yeah.
The more we can shine a light on what we need to shine on and help people unite is the biggest thing. So it's been a pleasure to hear you go through this conversation. One that I often don't like to get into too much anymore with all the mess, but I know we're stepping back into it. But with that being said, really nice to see you having that light shined on respecting other people and having love for everybody. That's huge. And
Yeah.
bless you for that, man, because that's what we need.
Thank you. And like I said, I don't give a shit about being censored or like I don't do well, like I don't make a fucking dime podcasting. I do it because I like to have conversations with interesting people. I like to learn. I've learned the most things I've learned. I started this at the 2020 because I was like everybody else. I was stuck a little bit at home doing
Mm,
some more stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to do it. And good old Joe Rogan said all you need is a fucking mic and a phone, and
yeah,
you can do it. And
yeah.
so I started doing it, and I don't make a dime. It takes more time out of my day to get these things done than anything. But I do it because one, there's a message to be spread, whether it be political. Like I like sports. Like on the weekend, we did one where we just sat and talked shit about football with me and my buddies, and people like listening to that. Anytime I could make somebody smile or laugh or forget about the bullshit for a minute, that's all that matters to me, right? So I appreciate that, and like I don't make a freaking dime. I just do it because I feel like it needs to be done, and I don't care if they censor me. I'm still gonna put it out there, and if no one listens, fuck it, who cares? At least I
Yeah,
did it.
whatever you're doing, what you have a calling to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise, man. Well, people can find me at the website, thebestwaytobreakfree.com, thebestwaytobreakfree.com. That's where you can get access to my podcast, my new masterclass on self-sabotage. I have addiction programs for nicotine, alcohol, weed, self-hypnosis tracks, all that kind of stuff. That's what I focus on. So that masterclass is actually launching in 2 days right now, which is one that people will definitely want to jump on to really have an understanding of the tribalism and actually see firsthand what's being shown in movies that a lot of people are missing, and
yeah,
understand just all the processes to release all that pain, that trauma you're holding on to, how to change your environment, understand the different toxins and really how your body works, and hack it and use the same techniques that are being used against you to brainwash and control your own mind. So when you do go to that subconscious part, which on average is 95% of the day, let alone the stressors and things that are putting you in that limbic system, it's operating in line with your conscious wishes and desires. So anybody can check out all that at thebestwaytobreakfree.com.
Beautiful. And hey, anytime you're in Toronto, drop by. We can definitely train. I can give you some Viking energy in the gym here.
Sounds good. I'm going to be there. It'll probably be a pretty packed week with the plans, but end of October, I'm going down there. We're going to hit up Wonderland and then go do some backcountry camping in around Sudbury. So
All right. If you're around the area, give me a shout and we'll get some training in, brother. Anytime you
sounds
want.
good, Ashton.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot, brother.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Shaun Zimmer. Check him out and peace out, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.